All right. Sunday, the 19th Zen Cup here, Mac Rollins. Um, Today's going to be a little different. I don't know how long it's going to be, or short for that matter. But I am going to be discussing a couple of things that I just, and this isn't going to interface with a blog post. This is kind of just something on the fly that I wanted to kind of talk about and see, I guess, not necessarily an opinion, but just kind of seeing where people are in terms of the future and how we are going to, mitigate that future. And one of the things that I don't really like is diving into taking a deep dive into politics, I guess, like a really deep dive. And I'm not saying that, I don't like talking politics, because I do. Politics are very much a part of our republic and a part of our society, and we need to be very much aware of how much the country is divided right now simply based on political allegiance. And just to be totally transparent, I was a Republican years ago. I have since left and consider myself an independent. I did so because I don't think that holding political ideologies to a party at this moment in time is beneficial to society. And what's interesting is that your political affiliation should not be based on the name itself or even what the party stands for. A little bit of that, but your political affiliation should dictate what's best for the country. And you don't have to be loyal to a party for a lifetime, simply, because of a foundation or maybe a cornerstone in your political beliefs or whatever it may be. But, I was talking to my grandma, who's probably the oldest person I know and also the smartest person I know. And she talked about how over the years, she's a Republican. My grandma is a diehard Republican. However, she's voted Democrat twice. And she told me that when she did so, it was because at the time that party had more to give than the other. And it wasn't to say that she lost her values in the Republican Party. She just felt that at the time, those particular skill sets that were available by the Democratic Party were more beneficial for the nation. And what's kind of funny, if you looked back on U.S. history and you looked at certain periods of time, you would be surprised at the political affiliation of the president who was in charge at the time. And I encourage both sides to do that. You would be proven wrong more times than not in assuming a political affiliation during a very important time in U.S. history. And that goes back to, the very first president up until now. You would be surprised. So just to kind of keep that momentum going, I like this concept where we have these preconceived notions and then we're oftentimes proven wrong. And we're like, wow, I didn't know that. I thought that, this was, something different. And that's a really neat, epiphany or whatever word you want to use to describe it, surprise, whatever. When you realize that you were essentially wrong the whole time just because you wanted to believe that it was right. And I don't like saying words like right and wrong, and I say that because politics should not be, there are certain things that are based on fact, but the majority of political divide is, if you can hear that, that's my dog breathing. He's an English bulldog. It's hard to get around. There are more times than not arguments that are created simply based on red or blue, right? And that's a very, very, very hot topic right now, where we have a Democrat leader. We have President Joe Biden, who's in office. And there are a lot of people who are criticizing him. We could say the same thing about every president in the history of the United States, where if one party's in power, the other one's going to tear them apart. That's just the way it is. And we need to stop doing that. It is not good for anyone. And it's going to sound like I'm favoring the Republican Party in this statement, but I'm not. I'm simply stating an observation. And the observation is that right now we are failing as a country. And this administration, in my opinion, is one of the worst I have ever seen for my lifetime. And I'm in my late 30s. So do the math, but I've been around a little bit enough to vote and to understand, good, bad, or indifferent, what I do or don't like when it comes to government leadership, specifically the presidency of the United States. But I think we can all agree that we're not in a good spot right now. And it takes a true American, Democrat or Republican, it takes a true American to admit that when their party is in control. And, I had my own thoughts and feelings about Obama. I had my own thoughts and feelings about Trump. I don't think we're ever going to have a perfect candidate, and that's okay. That's the reality of politics. You're never going to go, you know what, 100% I'm all in. I love everything about this individual, and I'm going to cast my vote based on the fact that I have confidence in them and everything's going to be perfect. It just doesn't happen. We don't have that option. But right now, I think we really need to entertain the option of voting for what's best. And again, I feel like, I'm going to be criticized for using a broad brush, or maybe even, making my own opinion on it, but I'm just going to say it. When it comes to politics and it comes to right versus left, the left always has this very, very, very intense version of itself where they're not willing to listen to reason, and they're not willing to listen at all. And I can say that with confidence based on my own personal experiences, my own personal, education, learning, watching, reading. I rarely, if ever, see a member of the Democratic Party who is willing to have a conversation, because it turns into emotions very quickly. And I can respect passion, but I can't respect an inability to control your emotions during a conversation. And emotions, I don't mean like physically, like not crying, but we rarely as a society, as of late, can have an honest conversation about where we are right now. And in particular, right now, if you asked a diehard Democrat if Joe Biden is a good president, they would say, yes, absolutely. He's one of the best we've ever had, blah, 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 blah. That statement alone, again, we can talk about opinion versus fact. I would argue, no, he's not. Not even close. And he's probably one of the worst presidents we've ever had. That is my opinion. Do I think that he's done good things for this country? My opinion, no. I think that we're a very vulnerable country right now because of President Biden. And before everyone, on that side tries to rip my head off, I'm going to just say this real quick. Right now, everything that's going on is a result of Joe Biden being elected. I will say with confidence that the Ukraine invasion was based simply on the fact that Putin said, you know what, now's a good time. And I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about Obama, too, where there were certain political elements at play and certain world leaders that just didn't fuck with the U.S. And that's a true statement. That isn't fact. I'm sorry, that isn't opinion. That is fact. That is a true statement. We were a powerful country for 12 years, and now we're not doing too good. And it's because of the fact that we have a man in office who can't even attend a press conference to answer questions. That's a problem. If my father-in-law went to go apply to In-N-Out Burger, they would question his age, right? That is something that is not allowed. You can't do age discrimination. But I'm telling you right now, if my grandmother, pick anyone over the age of 60, and if they went to some type of employment or tried to apply with some type of employment that was not necessarily easy, right, there would be concern. Well, you're a little old. I'm not trying to knock my father-in-law or my grandma. They're great people. I love them very much, but that's a reality. So why is that no different for the president of the United States, who, quite frankly, is having a hard time putting a sentence together and walking? I mean, I'm not trying to dig at the guy. I think that I don't like making fun of anyone, but that is a legitimate concern. We should have concern over that. And the rest of the world is laughing, or they're taking advantage of it, Putin being one of them. And I can almost guarantee you that if someone else was in office, I'm not saying a Republican, I'm saying someone else was in office, he wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. Plain and simple. And this war wouldn't be where it is if we had someone else in the office. And I would speak on Kamala, but I don't even want to, because that's just another. It's worse than what we have, which is scary to think that the second in command could be in command. That absolutely terrifies me. She has no business being in office. She has no experience, and I think she's not a good person. Again, my opinion. But going back to the ability or inability to identify when we should or should not, be able to have conversation. And I think that we should always be able to have if we don't have conversation, we have nothing. Communication is key. And the majority of people that I've been able to actually talk to face to face, not screen to screen, face to face is so much better. And it doesn't have to be a conversation that ends in, one person, winning versus the other. It shouldn't be a debate. You can just talk. And I think that talking is gone. No one wants to have a conversation anymore. And we're dealing in absolutes, which is very dangerous. As a local viewpoint, society overall is just very tense. I know that COVID did a lot of that. I mean, just think of all the things that we've been through. Not very many people have the energy, and that's a really important word, energy, to move forward, communicate, or even just have the ability to press on. That's really hard for people. And when we make a society tired, right, and there's not enough energy to keep going or to keep asking questions, then people just go, you know what, fine, we'll do whatever you want, and we're just going to say yes. I'm just going to sign and not even look. And we're approaching that point to where people don't care anymore. They don't care that we are on the potential brink of World War III. And people laugh when that word gets tossed around, but in all seriousness, it would not be a war in terms of combat and, all these other scenarios that we think of in our heads. It may eventually, but for the majority of it, it's going to be a war of tech. It's going to be a war of food, of power, water, energy. It's going to be a war that would be very uncomfortable, and it would affect everyone. And when you make people uncomfortable, especially a society that is used to having a very cush lifestyle, every American, for the most part, we really don't understand how good we have it until it's gone. And we haven't had it go away ever. We've had it forever. It being life, this life that is fairly easy to live. I want to stress that even the Americans that are living in, squalor is nothing compared to some of the other countries in existence. So, take that into account, that if we were to ever go to war, it would be a war of chess, not checkers, right? I really think that it would be a long conflict that wouldn't really benefit anyone. And right now, there's this really weird sort of power vacuum thing going on and struggle where eventually something's going to pop. And I really hope that it doesn't. I hope that we can find a way to get around it. And if you look at every major conflict, especially, wars with multiple powers involved, there's always a recipe for Armageddon, right? There's always something that is going to start cooking and then eventually just happens. And before we even know it, we're involved. And we tried to not be involved in World War II. A lot of people reference Pearl Harbor. That's not how it started. World War II started in the Atlantic, and it started with Germany. It started with us just saying, you know what, please don't sink our ships, please. And then boom, boom, boom. And then eventually, we got involved, but we tried so hard not to. We tried to turn a blind eye. And I'm not going to turn this into a history lesson, but the same could be said for a World War I in the long run, not the immediate. That was just sort of a dick measuring contest. But to say that we are possibly approaching a major conflict, that's not out of the realm of possibility at all. And then if we look at just stateside, us as a country right now, we're not in a good spot. Everyone's a little angry. I think we're still kind of shaking off this government control and all this, political allegiance shit that we went through with COVID. And it's really unfortunate. So I guess if I had a point to all this, it would be, we need to work better at communicating. We need to work harder at trying to listen and not just talk. We need to work as hard as we can, because if we don't start to address these issues, we are going to go down a road that is completely downhill, and walking backwards will be very difficult. And this goes for, everyone, not just people who care. Everyone should care at this point. And if you don't care, well, it's because you haven't been affected yet. And then when you get affected, you care, but you're going to be late to the party. So my advice is to just try to find common ground and reason. That's human nature. It should be, at least. But right now, that's kind of the furthest thing in our heads is going, okay, well, I'll listen to what you have to say. And I always tell people, in terms of social media, one of the worst things you can do is deal in absolutes and unfriend people, or, remove yourself or block people. It's so stupid. Like, I remember I have some family that completely just unfriended me on Facebook, and I wasn't saying anything crazy. And if they got offended, fine, that's on them. But you don't have to eliminate relationships that are going to be repairable someday, because eventually they're going to go, you know what, either side, hey, I probably shouldn't have said that, but we're still family, right? Same goes for friends. Same goes for everything else, where, removing someone from your life just because they share a certain viewpoint is not necessarily necessary. I mean, I get it. There can be extremes where you're like, no, that's not good. But try to find a balance. Try to find conversation. Hey, man, why do you feel that way? And then talk about it. It's one of the best things we can do as humans. And then it embraces the physical element of conversation, which I feel like is just gone. So anyways, guys, that's it. I just kind of wanted to just run through that and encourage people to speak, to talk. If you're listening to this, I appreciate it. And if you're listening, hopefully you understood, and maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. If you disagree, even better. But let's talk about it. I don't know. That's it. I'll be back next week, and another blog post coming, and we'll see, man. All right, guys, have a great rest of the week, and thank you again for listening. I'm on Instagram. Please do not please don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. That stuff does matter. I hate asking for it, but I'm trying to build this, and I want to do more. So that's how you build stuff. People have to click buttons. It's the world we live in. All right, guys. Thanks again. Bye-bye.